This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the SEO Mindset, where your hosts are Sarah McDowell and myself, Tazmin Suleman, and we have new episodes going out every single Thursday. Now, today you have just me, Tazmin, and what I'm going to be doing is diving into the archives and resurfacing an episode that I think will be really useful. The one I've chosen this time is Easy Strategies to Plan Your Career. Now, the reason I chose this is I've been talking to a lot of people, meeting a lot of people recently who are looking for a new role. And that's either because, unfortunately, they've been let go of their current one, or again, unfortunately, they're really not happy where they are. Fine, look for another job. But what I see them doing is making this common mistake, and that is rushing in, jumping into the application process. And they feel that that's a really great thing to do because they feel stuck. But the problem is that they've not taken that time to reflect on what sort of role that they really want. So if this sounds like you, without reflection, you may end up with the same type of role, facing the same challenges that you currently have. So I just wanted to share a few small, easy things that you can do before you do that rushing in. And number one, it's really simple. Take some time to understand what you truly want before you start applying. Take a step back and ask yourself, in all of my old roles, my previous roles, and these are paid or voluntary ones, what did I love about them? Another question that you can ask is, what drained me or made me feel unhappy? You can think about the environment that you worked in. What sort of environment makes you thrive? What sort of values do you want the company to have the next role that you're in? And how is that going to align with you? Because when you have a role that energizes you, when you have an organization that aligns with you, you're going to be much happier. Step number 2 is define what your non-negotiables are. Now, we often think of things like salary, job title, as things that we are seeking, but increasingly things like work-life balance are important, company culture, growth opportunities even. Perhaps you're looking to go into a leadership style role. So write down a list of these are my absolute non-negotiables and these are some nice to haves. And it'll help you make the decision much easier, because if you are in a place where you feel stuck or feel unhappy, it's sometimes hard to make those decisions. Another one, which sort of merges onto the last two, is identify what you're missing. So is it a lack of challenge? Is it you want a role where you have more autonomy? Is it a role where you're going to receive a lot more recognition? Maybe you're going to do a lot more client-facing work, or maybe you want to reduce that and do more background work. Do you need a complete career pivot, or is it a gentle shift? Is it that you want more responsibilities? Understanding what you're missing in your current role will really help you focus on getting that in the next role. The next point I want to talk about is taking control of your career path. Often when we are looking for another role because things have not gone so well, we end up taking a sideways shuffle. But try and make the next step a step forward, even if you are pivoting. And by thinking and reflecting on what sort of role you want and what sort of skills you are bringing in. It'll help you take that step forward, and it'll also help you perhaps not repeat the old patterns that got you into the role that you are in currently that you're not enjoying. Step 5, and this is my last step, I will have a little bit of a reflection at the end though, is as you're going through this process, take time each day to journal your journey. Now, this could be 5 minutes where you're writing, or 5 minutes when you're voice noting, thinking about where you are on that journey, what you're learning, what you are realizing about yourself, because this will really help you tweak the actions that you take in applying for a new job, what sort of jobs you're applying for, location wise, all sorts of things. So just keep checking in with yourself along that journey. Now, it really is my final thought before we dive into the episode. A job change should bring you closer to the career and the life that you want, not just to be an escape from your current one. Take steps to make that more of a role that you're really craving instead of just jumping ship and going into another job potentially that you won't enjoy. Okay, enough from me from now. Let's just now listen to the episode that I've chosen, Easy Strategies to Plan Your Career. And I wish you all the well. If you are applying for a job, wish you all the best. Hi, Tazmin here. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Be more visible, earn more, but also take care of your well-being and have work-life harmony? Well, I can help you because I'm offering you a free 30-minute consultancy call. Together we can go through where you want to be and how to get there. Simply click on the link in the show notes, fill in a form, and I'll get back to you.
The live podcast is back. SEO Mindset and Search with Candour is teaming up again to record a podcast in front of a live audience the night before Brighton SEO. And the topic is all about personal brand. We'll be discussing what this is, why it's important, and sharing strategies and our own experiences. Time for the important details. It's happening Wednesday the 9th of April 2025. From 7 p.m. at Projects The Lanes. It's free to attend and there'll be free pizza, snacks and drinks. Please help us to spread the word. Tell your friends, your work colleagues, anyone and everyone, anyone who you think would really enjoy this event. It was a sellout last time, so grab your ticket today to secure your spot. To do that, simply head on over to the show notes and you'll find a link. We really look forward to seeing you on the night.
SEOs. Have you heard about Stat? Stat is a SERP tracking and analytics platform built for tackling large-scale SEO with accuracy and ease. Whether you're in-house or at an agency, juggling multiple sites, millions of pages, or just a ton of keywords, Stat tracks your search performance at scale without falling over. And since each Google SERP is a treasure trove of consumer research and made of more than just rankings, Stat is more than just a rank tracker. From SERP features to competitors, search volume to share a voice, you'll get everything the 100 Results SERP has to offer, parsed, analyzed, and delivered right to your doorstep every single day. It's pretty much the ultimate SEO insights tool. And with Instant Insight, you can unlock new search opportunities, drive more visibility, improve the value of the SEO work you do. Want to learn more about how you can succeed with Stat? Head on over to www.getstat.com or follow the link in the show notes.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and the absolutely fantabby-dozy Tazmin Suleman, where new episodes go out every Thursday. Now, this week we are talking all about career planning. And it's such a great conversation with Tazmin because we really get into the benefits and challenges of career planning. So we discuss how it's good to have a plan, and it gives you something to focus and work towards. But a challenge is that it can not be very flexible, and you can end up being a bit too structured. So we talk all about that, and we talk about how you can get the best of both worlds. So it was a really good conversation. And I share a career planning step plan by Yale. That's what some of the conversation is based on. So you get to take away some easy to implement strategies to really help with your SEO career planning. So really hope you enjoy this episode. Before we get into it, reminder of how you can support the podcast. So we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. Buy Me a Coffee allows creators like me and Tazmin to receive one-off donations. If you fancy giving us a cheeky donation, you can do that by head into the link in our show notes. And please do share our podcasts and episodes with your friends, loved ones, and colleagues, because we want other people to know about this podcast, get value out of it like you do, hopefully. I mean, you're listening. So yeah, please do spread the word, share the podcast, because that would be amazing. All right, let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, Tazmin, and how are we doing?
Really well, thanks, Sarah. How are you?
Yes, can't complain. Can't complain at all. We are recording on a Wednesday evening, and we're summertime, aren't we, at the moment? So the sun is still shining in Worcester. How about Milton Keynes?
It has been wet and rainy and thundery all day, so it's not felt like summer. And I am really, really. Should I share this with you? Should I? Okay, I will.
You're going to have to now.
So, hot water bottle today. It's so cold.
I mean, I love a hot water bottle. There is nothing wrong with using a hot water bottle, even in May when we're coming into the summertime. But yeah, I do. We got thunder and wetness yesterday, I think. I mean, days have kind of like blurred and merged into one. But yeah, Benny the dog was not impressed by the thunder. Alert. What's going on? We're under attack. What? That was my impression that only Tazmin will be able to see, because this is an audio podcast, isn't it? But hey, here we go. So let's crack on with this week's episode. We are talking about career planning, and we're going to touch on benefits, challenges, and strategies. So to kick things off, I'm going to ask you a question, Tazmin. If I say the word career planning to you, what kind of comes to mind?
Now, do I answer that as Tazmin now or Tazmin when I started out? Because
Tazmin now.
Tazmin now is well, I'd be really interesting to hear how you talk about it. But I think it's having a career rather than a job where you just go to do your bit and come back home again, and that's the end of that. A career is something that can be really fulfilling, give you a great sense of achievement, where you build your skills, you get to do some exciting stuff, and that doesn't just happen by chance. There is an element of planning, there is an element of self-reflection. What do I want to do? How do I want to shape it going forward? And taking proactive steps, such as taking different courses, finding a mentor, looking at role models. So it's not a straightforward one size fits all, but there is an element of looking at what you want from your career, looking at what how much money you want to earn. That's another element to look at. What gives you fulfillment, and then taking steps to get you from where you are now to that place.
Okay. I mean, I resonate with that and what you were talking about. Now, I do have a definition here from the Chartered Management Institute, CMI for short, and they work with businesses and educate to inspire people to become skilled, confident, and successful managers and leaders. So CMI know what they're talking about, right? So their definition is: career planning is traditionally understood as the process of assessing personal strengths, values, and aspirations, establishing goals and objectives, identifying the steps needed to achieve them, and putting this information into a written career plan, which will then be periodic. That's a tricky word to say, isn't it? Periodically. You're going to have to stand in for me here, Tazmin. My brain's not letting me.
Is it periodically?
Thank you. Reviewed and updated. So there's a more structured and more a more sort of theory based definition, I suppose. But it's still, when I asked you the question, what does career planning mean to you? There are some crossovers there, isn't there? There are some things that are similar. But for me, when I read this definition and when I think about it, it is a lot about, okay, looking in on yourself. Yeah. So sort of assessing what your strengths, values, and aspirations are. Yeah. So because when you assess these certain things, assessing your strengths, you can know, okay, what I'm really strong at, what needs work on. But as important is your values and aspirations. So as part of your career planning, it's really important to make sure that your values and where you want to be, like your goals, that they're part of that career planning that you're doing, because you don't ever want to end up stuck. You don't ever want to end up just being safe either. You need to push yourself. I suppose the tricky bit is the establishing goals and objectives, because I suppose the easy bit is sort of thinking, like, overall, this is where I want to go. But the tricky bit is sort of, okay, these are the goals, these are the objectives, and this is how we're going to do it. And I get that that's tricky. So in part 2, I will be sharing a strategy for you to be able to do this better. And then becomes the written career plan. So yeah, very much so writing down your career plan, because you need to get all these thoughts and feelings into a structured plan. Because without that plan, you then can't review and update. You can't see your progress. So yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. Is there anything that come into mind as I'm talking?
Part of me does feel it's all quite rigid. And where's the
Okay.
fluidity to it? So I'll give an example of my son. He wanted to be a doctor. You know, he's 17. He wants to be a doctor. 16. When did you pick your A levels? 16, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Long time ago. And he said, "Oh, Mum, I've picked maths, biology, and chemistry because those are the subjects I need." I thought, okay, fine, great. And he said, "And I picked English." I said, "Why did you pick English?" And he said, "Because I really love English, Mum." I said, "Well, hold that thought, because that's telling you something. You're saying you want to be a doctor, but you're picking English as a 4th A level, which you don't have to do. There must be something in that." And then he went on to be a journalist. So he decided at 17 he wasn't going to be a doctor. He changed the subject that he was applying for at A level. So I think there's an element of paying attention to yourself. And also the world we live in is moving so fast that 5 years ago, would I have said part of my career plan was to be a podcaster? No, I wouldn't. But it's when you're very rigid and just looking in one direction, you could be missing all sorts of things in the periphery. And at the same time, if you just look at the periphery and don't have a plan, that also can derail you. So I think there's a balance to be struck there.
It is. And it's so funny that you said these things, because I was thinking there is benefits and issues when it comes to like career planning, because the benefits are you have structure. Yeah, you have routine. It gives you something to work towards, because I think sometimes if there is no plan, how do you know what you're aiming for? I know personally myself, I love a plan. I love a to-do list. Otherwise, I get a bit overwhelmed by all the stuff that I could be doing. And then if you do have a plan, you do have a way to like assess your progress as well. Because I mean, we're talking to a load of SEO and marketeers, right? We know how important it is to measure and track and have benchmarks. So it does give you that. But the issues and challenges is, how do you know your full potential? Yeah. Say you might say no to something because it's not part of the plan, but it could be good for you. So, for example, Tazmin, back in the day when you were first career planning and like, yeah, thinking carving out your journey, podcasting probably wasn't even a thing in your mind because you didn't know it existed. It wasn't on the cards. So when this opportunity came up, when it did, if you'd have been so structured and so rigid, and you might have ended up saying, actually, no, because this isn't part of the plan, when in actual fact saying yes to this podcast, here we are, what is it, 2 years later? And one of the best decisions that you've made, would you say?
Absolutely, I love it, and I think I got to the stage in my career where I'm sort of throwing caution to the wind a little bit, and I'm having more of a playful time in my career. That's not to say that we don't take strategic steps, even with the podcast ourselves. But no, there would not have been any podcasting way back when. I started my career when there wasn't the internet, so that was a long ago. I think there is a real balance, and I think there's a real importance for people to tap into themselves and really think, actually, you know what, I enjoy doing this thing. And just because you enjoy it and find it easy, perhaps even standing up in front of a room of people and giving a talk, that doesn't mean it's easy for everyone. So, pat on the back for everything that and it's about having a career in flow as well. But so I think between the very structured definition that you have given and the throwing caution to the wind philosophy that I'm at, there is a balance between the two.
100%. And there needs to be that balance, because, yeah, like if you only do one or the other, then it's going to end up being a bit tricky for you, isn't it? Because if you are too structured and too routine, you won't end up reaching your full potential. If you're too much like, let's just see what happens, I won't have any plan, how do you know where you're going? So you do need both, and you need a balance. And I suppose something that comes to my mind is self-awareness in the sense of, so for example, when I'm thinking of my next steps and where I want to next go, I try to get to the root and to my core of like, what do I enjoy doing? So yes, I enjoy being a podcaster, but if I strip that back, yeah, it's not just being a podcaster. I mean, it's pretty cool being able to say, hi, Sarah McDowell, podcaster. That is cool. Don't get me wrong. However, when I strip it back, what it actually is I enjoy teaching. I enjoy conversations. Yeah. And so I think what you can do to help is, the bit more fluidity comes in when you're career planning. Have a look at things that you enjoy doing. What is it that you love? Yeah. Like it might not be teaching. It might be you love to like really dig into data. Yeah. You're really technically minded. Perhaps you're really strategical. Maybe you love like looking at a whole plan. You're the strategy kind of person. But I would always strip back to your core. What drives you? What are you passionate about? Maybe there's a value in there. Like maybe there's something that you want to do. Like for me, I want to support and back more LGBTQ plus campaigns and allyship and stuff. So is there stuff in my career plan that I can do to support that? So I think what I'm saying is, and I love your thoughts on this, Tazmin, is if you strip back, what is it that drives you? What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you love? Have a think about that. And then the structure comes in, because then you can kind of research and look at the different channels where you can go about that. So with this teaching and learning, it like podcasting wasn't always on my cards. I came across it, but once I did, I was like, oh, actually that fits in with me teaching and having conversations with people. Let's have a bit of that. So I think that might help in this situation.
And I think also notice what you're doing. So, for example, if you're part of a team and the team manager is off sick or away, do you naturally step in? Do you naturally start leading projects? Because that's also showing you what you're innately good at. I think if you're going to be strategic about things and be strategic about building transferable skills, and that's like, really great communication skills, really great organizational skills, because those are going to be useful no matter what career you go down.
100%. Okay, so Tazmin, we are coming to our short break. Before I do, I just want to ask, what has been your main takeaway from part 1, please?
So I'm going to link my main takeaway with something we spoke about in our very first podcast, which was the growth and fixed mindset. And one of the first things we talked about was ownership. Take ownership of your career, whether you decide to be fluid about it, structured about it, open to opportunities, going down a straight path, whatever it is. But take ownership, because don't leave it to anyone else. Nobody's going to be able to plan it as well as you do. Nobody's going to know you as well as you do. And your career isn't going to matter to anybody else as much as it matters to you.
Amen, sister. Love that. Love that. Okay, great takeaway. And yeah, something for our listeners to, reflect. Remove why do I keep trying to say fancy words and they just don't come to my brain? Remunerate? Do you know what word I'm trying to say? Help me out, Tazmin. Come on.
Is it renew? I can't say it now. Stop using these words. Think of another word.
We need a word of a day. Wow. You sit with it, don't you? Reflect, process, remunerate. I'm sure our listeners know what we're trying to say. Anyway, so join us back for part 2, because in part 2, I have a 5-step career decision-making progress that comes from Yale University. So me and Tazmin will go through that, and so join us back if you want to know how to implement a career planning strategy. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of this career planning episode. And I really enjoyed the conversation that me and Tazmin had in the first part, where we sort of talked about what career planning was and the benefits and challenges that come to mind. So that was a really good conversation, and Tazmin finished us off with a lovely takeaway. So now what I want to do is, because something that me and Tazmin always say is that we want to give you easy to implement strategies and tips. So actually things that you can listen and implement after listening to our episode. I think I said listen, implement, actionable far too many times there. Very eager to get all those words in. You know what I mean? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is Yale University have an article called 5-Step Career Decision-Making Process. And I have linked to that in the show notes. Always check out the show notes, because anything that we talk about will always pop it in. So Tazmin obviously talked about the first ever podcast episode we did about fixed versus growth mindset. So that's in there as well. So always check out the show notes because there's always golden nuggets, great resources there. So Tazmin, are you ready to hear about Yale University's 5-step career decision-making process?
I'm very excited to hear all about it.
Okay. What I want you to do is I'll go through each of the steps and then we can have a little chat about each of the steps. Does that sound good? I'm just going to take that as a yes. I'm just going to carry on talking. So step number 1, the most important step, and we bang on about this all the time on our episodes, is self-assessment. Yeah. So self-awareness, getting to know yourself. So when we're talking about career planning, things that we need to assess about ourselves are skills. Yeah. So what skills do you have? And when you're thinking about skills, what comes naturally to you? So for example, for me, I'm a people person. Yeah. So I'm good at building relationships with other people. So when I was working agency as an SEO, one of my first roles in SEO was agency side. And one of the things that I was good was building relationships with clients and talking to them and stuff like that. So that's one of the skills that I have. What you've also got to think is what skills are you lacking? Yeah. And be kind to yourself because we're all going to have skills that we have and we don't have, but you just need to list them down so you know where you stand. I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable here, Tazmin. What's a skill that you feel that you lack?
Bizarrely, I'm not very techie. As you know, I'm not very techie. Way back when I worked in what was called a software house, and they had a policy that if your computer broke, you were not allowed to fix it. You just got onto another one and you kept on banging out that code and somebody else would fix it. And that works for me just fine. So yes, technical skills, definitely.
Okay, well, thank you for being open and honest there. A skill that I'm lacking is I sometimes, if it's a new thing or something that I've not done before, I don't have patience. I don't have patience with myself. Yeah. So that is a skill that I lack, is giving myself time, patience to work something out. So I always try and find someone else to fix it for me. Sort of similar. But that's a skill that I don't have. I don't have patience. I can't sit and work something out because I don't give myself patience. Like I'm not, some people are really good at problem solving, aren't they? But it sometimes throws me a bit off, for example. Other things that you need to think about is interest. Yeah. What are your passions? What interests you? What lights your fire? I wish I could have like emojis of fire going off here. Personality. What is your personality? There's loads of personality surveys and quizzes that you can do online to understand who you are. So are you a people person? Are you not so much of a people person? Are you introvert, extrovert? Are you a caregiver? Yeah. So there's loads of personality surveys and quizzes that you can do online. I'm not going to link to any in the show notes because seriously, there's those out there. Have fun. And then the other one is your values. What is important? What are your ethics? What are your non-negotiables? So think about your boundaries. Yeah. And this is important in work. We all have to pay the bills, whether we are employed or we are freelance. But, and sometimes easier said than done, but we need to make sure that we are aligning our work and our projects and what we're working on with our values, what are important to ourselves. Tazmin, that's the end of my list for self-assessment. Is there anything missing, anything lacking?
I think you covered it all. I would say don't just look at how you interact with people at work, also look at how you're interacting with people in your social life. What sort of skills are you demonstrating there? What is the thing that people keep on asking you to do? Are you always the one that gets asked to plan the party or do the catering or whatever it is? So look for clues. Be Miss Marple or Poirot. I love Poirot.
Love that.
And just,
Poirot over
oh,
Miss Marple.
definitely. And one particular Poirot. But yeah, so look at all parts of your life, because you'll be the idea, the hope is that you're the same person everywhere, just showing different facets.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step number 2 is identify and research your options. So, what you want to do is you want to learn as much as you can about employers, businesses, brands within your fields of interest and trends in the industry. The idea here is you want to fully immerse yourself in publications, websites, and resources used by professionals in this field. Yeah. So, for example, in SEO, what are people reading? What communities are we part of? For example, me and Tazmin, we're both part of the Women in Tech SEO community. Me personally, to keep up to date with the latest SEO news, I go to Search Engine Journal. Yeah. So really immerse yourself, do some research, because what this does is this helps you develop a list of things to be aware of, even like target maybe employers or job possibilities. And it also helps you to prepare for networking. Networking is important, making connections. There is that saying, your net worth is in your network. And that is so true. And interviewing as well. Like, you need to set yourself up. You don't want to set yourself up for a fail. You want to set yourself up for success. So identify and research is step number 2. Tazmin, anything to add on this?
I'm not sure at what point, maybe throughout all of the points, find somebody else to talk to, whether it's a mentor or a coach, because they will see things in you that you probably don't see in yourself. So when you're identifying and researching, look at all these publications, but also look at people that you look at as role models, or whose careers that you look at and you think, oh, wish I could do that.
Nice. Very important. Moving on to step number 3, and that is evaluate and prioritize. So things to think about here is, what is your initial reaction to the career field after your research? What appealed to you? Yeah. So when you're doing your digging in like SEO and the different bits and bobs, what did you really like? What were you drawn to? What weren't you so much drawn to? What didn't really light your fire? Can you identify the skills, knowledge, or experience that you need to be competitive to get into this field, to get into this industry? So with SEO, where you are now compared to where you want to be, can you do the research, find out what you're lacking or what you can do to improve where you already are? A big one is, are you interested enough in the field to develop these skills and knowledge? So, for example, when me and Tazmin we first decided to start this SEO Mindset podcast about career progression and personal growth, after some conversations, I knew that I was hella interested in this conversation. And we've been doing this for 2 years. And I feel that we've only just scratched the surface, because I'm so interested in always reading and immersing and finding other things to learn about. And then how much adapting will be necessary for you to be satisfied in the career area. So what you got to remember here is, no career is a perfect match. Yeah. But what you want to be doing is, while you're evaluating and prioritizing, while you're going through this stage, what fields or where can you aim to go in your SEO career that has more positives than negatives? For example, all jobs are going to have negatives, but as long as everything else is good, then that's a good balance. Tazmin, anything to
A little
add?
while ago, you said about the things that we found difficult. So I said tech. You said beginning of a project, you might find it. You don't have that much patience. If you've identified a field that you want to be in, think about the biggest challenges that you will have, the biggest lack of that skill that you're lacking, that you're really going to need in this job. Are you willing to do that work? Because if you're willing to do that work, then that says a lot. So if podcasting required me to get really, techie, would I do it? Actually, you know what? I probably would give it a stab, because it would mean that I can carry on doing this work. But I think if you don't just look at the easy stuff that you'll have to do, the stuff that you're comfortable, think about the things that you're uncomfortable doing.
And there's always going to be things where there is a skill or knowledge gap. That is just going to be part of your journey. But what you've got to have a think about is it something that I am willing to learn, and I have time and I want to learn how to do it? Or can I work with someone else? Can I give this bit of the job to someone else to do? So, for example, when I first got into podcasting, it was a massive learning curve for me, because I had to learn how to record episodes, how to edit podcast episodes, how to use a host, how to publish episodes. You know what I mean? Like, there was so much that I had to learn, but I was willing to do the work because I wanted to. But that isn't always the case. Like, if you want to do something and it's like to step to the next level in your career, you don't always have to do it yourself. Always ask for help. Is there someone that you can work with? Can you partner up with someone? Can you do a collaboration? So yeah, just because there is a skill or knowledge gap at that point doesn't mean that there always will be, and there's always options for you. Yeah. Going on to step number 4, take action and try options. Okay. So once you have got a bit of a plan together, you've got a bit of a structure, you've got a bit of a flow, you need to start taking actions. Yeah. And how can you do that? So what I would suggest doing is everything in your plan, everything that you want to do, have an action point next to it. Yeah. And sometimes you need to do the most minimal viable product. I think that's a thing that we've talked about in the past. So there might be something that feels overwhelming. So, for example, you might already you might already have a career, or you might be working on a certain project, or you might be doing something right now, and the next step that you want to take might seem like a massive leap. Yeah, it might seem like a massive. So, for example, you might be a SEO specialist at a company, whether that's agency or in-house, and you want to know, okay, I want to be an SEO manager. I want to be a leader. I want to step that up. Or, for example, you might decide, I want to do more speaking gigs. I want to go on more podcasts. I want to speak at conferences, but I'm not doing that now, but I want to get there. These steps can feel huge and humongous, but always break them down. Yeah. Find the easiest thing that you can do that gets you in steps in the right direction, but it doesn't seem too daunting. Yeah. So just do something, because once you get the ball rolling, it will be easier. And it's always going to be daunting doing things for the first time, but you just got to try it. Get out of your comfort zone and just try stuff. And remember, while you are taking action and you're trying options, you don't have to commit to anything. If you're trying something and you don't like it, just don't do it again, or stop doing that thing. Like, you don't have to, just because you've signed up to a thing to try, you don't have to stay in it. You're not stuck. Tazmin, anything to add?
So I love a small step. Next to me is a whiteboard of a big project I'm doing, and I've broken it down in teeny tiny steps because it's so daunting, and I'll tick it off. Every time I've done one bit, I tick it off. That said, though, when I was petrified of public speaking, I decided to go and do a stand-up comedy class in Camden because I thought this is so far away from what I actually have to do. And it was almost shocking the system into thinking, if I can stand up in front of a room of strangers and tell a joke, then I'm going to be fine in my own company, in the canteen, talking about the data that I understood. So sometimes, if that's the way you want to roll, go for it. Just because Sarah and myself usually like the small steps, if you want to go off and go and take that comedy class, go off and do it. The other thing, and we've talked about this before, accept that the first few times that you're going to do it, it's going to be rubbish. So just get through those first 25 times. When I was getting more comfortable with social media, I was told the first 25 reels that you record will be rubbish. So just get on and do it. And that what that does is it gets you used to doing the reels, and then you start getting comfortable with that bit, and you can start honing in on talking sense.
Makes sense. And finishing up, because time is against us, Tazmin, these podcast episodes, time just goes fast. So the last step is reflect and reevaluate. So you need time to process, yeah? Reflection is always an important part of the process. So any time that you have tried something and you've done a step towards where you want to be, take a step back, have a breather, and just have a think about it. Yeah. Get your thoughts down on paper. What did you enjoy about the thing that you did, and what did you not enjoy about that thing? Like, is the stuff that you didn't enjoy, is it a deal breaker? Like, do you need to find something else? Do you need to pivot? Or was it not so much of a deal breaker? Because there's always, no matter what job you have, what job you do, there's always going to be an element that's not so enjoyable. So the podcast, for example, with me and Tazmin, there's always going to be parts of the process that we're not going to enjoy. But then you make a plan. Like, is it something that I'm happy to take on and I'll just grit my teeth and just do it? Or can I hire someone or get someone else to do it for me? What did you find challenging, and what excited you, and what did you find that was more easy? Yeah. And then again, with the stuff that was challenging you, was it a good challenge? Was it firing you up? Did it excite you? Or was it too much of a challenge that you ended up not liking it? Because again, another time to like reflect and have a think about that. The stuff that you're finding easy, that's great, because I think whatever job, whatever project, whatever career path that you're going into, finding stuff that comes natural is a good sign that it's something that you should be doing. Yeah. And the stuff that you find quite easy, you can then, because obviously the things that you're finding challenging and hard are going to take up more resource of yourself. It's going to take up more effort, more thinking power. So finding stuff where you've got a balance is always good, because if you think, okay, this is quite easy, I can do this without much thought, it allows you to take on more challenges to help you to grow. And then the last thing, was it the work itself or the actual project or the thing that you were working on? Or was it the people that you were working with? Was it the types of people? Was it the company that you were at? These are all valid things to ask yourself, because people and who you're surrounding yourself with is very important. And you should always, and it's easier said than done, but you should always surround yourself by people that charge you, that are a good influence. Yeah. Like, obviously it's idealistic, because no matter what job, what project, whatever you're working on, you're always going to have people that you don't gel with, that you don't click, that are a bit toxic. Yeah. But again, reevaluate and assess that. Is that something that I'm okay with because it's part of the job that I'm doing? Or do I need a plan to get out? Yeah. What can I do instead? Remember, you are in control of everything, and anything that you are doing, like, ask yourself these questions, get to the core. Am I enjoying this? Do I want to carry it on? Because life is too short to be stuck or sticking at something that is actually not enjoyable, or you're surrounded by, I'm not going to swear, but not nice people. But there's always things that you can do. Tazmin, anything on that, on our last step?
Yeah, so as everyone knows, we're all about career progression, but also your well-being. So, like Sarah said, if you're surrounded by people that are draining your battery, that you're not enjoying with, that aren't cheering you on, there's something wrong there. Get out, find a way to get out because life's too short. Um, Whereas if you are with a group of people that you don't necessarily have to be best buddies with them, but if they are encouraging you to grow, if they are helping you to progress in your career, you don't have to like them as long as there is a mutual respect there. That's also relevant. So yeah, surround yourself with great people. And like I said at the beginning, if you don't take control of your career, if you don't take ownership of it, somebody else will. Likelihood is that your manager will have had a set of objectives come from the top and tell you this is the skill that you have to get better at or learn. And that's fine. I'm not saying you don't do those things, but put your views in as well, saying, you know what, I'd really like to get better at this. And look for opportunities within the organization to learn. So, you know, use that as your training ground. You're there for so many hours. Use that as your training ground.
And you don't always have to look at different companies or different organizations to work at. Just because something isn't the right fit or you're not getting what you need from it right now doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. So what I think is communication is always key. Remember that we're not mind readers. Yeah. Just because something is in your head and you want to do something, and if you don't communicate that, if you don't have a conversation with that, how does that person know? So you need to make sure that whoever is above you, whatever manager, you have a good relationship with them, so then you can go to them and be like, this is what I want to do, this is my plan, this is where I want to be, can you support me? Because then that's a conversation. They might turn around and be like, Sarah, didn't even realize this was a thing. I'm so glad you brought this to our attention. We can do X, Y, and Z. Then there's the decision. You don't have to look somewhere else, especially if you like the company, you like the people that you work with, and all the benefits are great. Obviously, if they turn around and be like, we can't help you there, then that's a different conversation, because then you're like, right, I need to do some thinking here. But the grass isn't always greener, I suppose. You don't always have to jump ship. Always look. Something that I'm getting better at is thinking smarter, not harder. So don't look for the easy route first. Yeah. Don't always think complicated and hard. Look at the most easy thing to get to where you want to right now. Tazmin, I feel like we're both soapboxy now. To wrap us up, please, I asked you in the first part 1 for a takeaway. You know what I'm going to ask you? Your main takeaway from part 2, please. It just has to be one. I'm going to be strict.
Oh, I think I'll reiterate the ownership thing, and also what you just said. Look at within your organization. Look at the opportunities that are around you, because there's probably more than you're actually seeing. And it struck a chord what you said, because it's about 12 years ago, while I was data integrity manager, and I said to my manager, I'd really like to run a goal setting workshop. Do you think I could do that? And the MD of the organization said, use the boardroom, use a group of people from the organization. They funded breakfast. They gave me all day to run it. And that was my first ever goal setting workshop that I did. So yes, if brilliant company, Frontline in Peterborough. So yes, all of that resonated. Ask the people that are close to you for the opportunities that you want, and go for it.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, I'm very sorry, but that does bring us to the end of this week's episode. It's been wonderful chatting with Tazmin, and I hope we've armed you with some strategies, advice, even started you thinking about your career planning and how you're going to tackle it. So it's been a really good conversation. Reminder that these episodes go out every Thursday. The next episode that we've got is I'll be speaking to a special guest about how to positively challenge yourself. So that'd be a nice follow on from this conversation, won't it? Because, that will help with your career planning, knowing how to challenge yourself. So that's an episode that is coming up. And just a reminder of how you can support me in Tazmin. So we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. There's a link in the show notes. Basically, you can give us a one-off donation and basically say, thanks for doing what you do. Here's some money. So go and check out the link in the show notes. And please share and review us. Yeah, because SEOs, you know how the algorithm works. We need people listening. Please share this podcast with your friends, family, colleagues. If this episode is really resonating and you want to shout it from the rooftops, please do. Or maybe there's someone that you know would really love this episode. Get the link wherever you're listening to this episode and send it to them. And hopefully they'll enjoy it too. And whenever you are on Spotify, Apple, whatever, Amazon Music, whatever podcast directory, playing app, whatever, please give us a review because that would be wonderful. Right, Tazmin, anything else from you before we say goodbye?
If you found anything that resonated, share it with the younger members of your family. Pass on the knowledge. The best way to retain knowledge is to pass it on. So that's my tip. That's the last thing I want to say today. From goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Join us next time.
Hey SEOs, are you ready to strike more eureka moments? Then you'll need the ultimate SEO insights tool, Stat. Stat delivers precision SERP insights in any location, on desktop and mobile, every single day for keyword counts that start in the thousands. There's no more guessing who the competition is or how you measure up. Stat's powerful share of voice metrics and robust competitor tracking will keep you in the know and on top of the SERPs. With one-click CSV reports, handy APIs, and pre-built Looker Studio connectors, you can even take your SERP data to go to fuel deep analysis and ambitious experimentation. And that's just scratching the surface. Learn more about Stat at www.getstat.com or follow the link in the show notes.
Don't forget about that live podcast happening the night before Brighton SEO, which is all about personal brand. Yep, the SEO Mindset and Search with Candor podcasts are teaming up again. It's happening Wednesday the 9th of April 2025 from 7 p.m. at Projects The Lanes. It's free to attend and there'll be free pizza, snacks and drinks. Please help us to spread the word. Tell your friends, work colleagues, anyone and everyone. Help us shout it from the rooftops. It was a sellout last time, so to avoid that horrible FOMO feeling, grab your ticket today to secure your spot. Head on over to the show notes for the link and we look forward to seeing you on the night.